Hailing from the days of Medarot 5, it is one of the original sea-based heavy protectors of any particular team she's on. It is the finless porpoise type FLP01 Jiangzhu, with a kit of Wave, Gravity Guard, Optic Guard, Sea Legs, and the leg ability of Hoplite, which buffs the resist stats of the legs for every defense part equipped on the build. Now, Jiangzhu is most certainly no stranger to 3D combat, as she's actually been around ever since Medarot 7, but has been stuck in the NPC jail of Medarot S pretty much anywhere that she was seen, whether as an enemy fight, in a story mode, or in any particular event prior to this week. But that is most certainly no more, as due to this event, she will be officially available for anyone that does manage to snag her. And she does have some pretty solid skills across the board if used correctly. Wave, on the head part, and her only actual combat skill while on the field, is an ailment-based skill that specializes in debuffing the enemy's heat and cool stats by 25%, making them progressively slower on the field as long as the ailment remains in effect, and also prevents them from being able to defend, if I recall correctly. Which means every hit is going to be a critical hit no matter what, as long as the ailment remains in effect. Gravity Guard on the right arm is a defensive-based skill that will put Jiangzhu on the center line to intercept blows for her allies. But in addition to tanking basically everything for however many charges she's on the line, this also means that she will negate, as in zero out entirely, any gravity attribute attacks that come to attack her while that shield is active. This includes anything from press, break hammer, break rush, anything of that like will be rendered null and void at no damage to her as long as she is centered on the field. Optic Guard on the left arm is basically the same thing, where she also will plant herself on the center line to protect her allies, but instead will null and void any optic attribute attacks. These include beam, laser, hyper beam sword, and so on. These kind of attacks will instead be rendered null and void instead of laying waste to anyone that is in their path. The only real notable weaknesses to these, though, is the fact that because they are basic guard skills on a non-meta change bot, they are susceptible to anyone that is using, say, Destroy, obviously. That will instantly break the shield. They are also weak to anyone that chooses to use, say, Deathlock, or Wave, or Hold, or even Slip to try to slip past the guard or cancel her. So while these guards can be put to very good use, some caution is advised if you do plan to make use of them, and try to make sure you keep an eye on Jiangzhu just to make sure that she doesn't get broken or crippled too quickly, so that something can break through her shield and get to who they're intending to attack. Sea Legs means that she'll have pretty decent coverage across most terrains. Not the best, but in terms of the top, in terms of terrain compatibility, it is arguably one of the middle ground ones, I guess you could call them. Not the fastest, but they most certainly make up for it with other stats across the board. And when it comes to those stats, though, she's packing about 621 for that mobility, so definitely not the greatest there is, but when it comes to sea-based leg, that is kind of par for the course. But of course, also par for the course with Sea Legs, she is packing a base evade of 1345, so definitely going to be dodging or grazing a lot more than she will be trying to tank blows, which to a point kind of contradicts what she does on the field, but it ultimately depends on how you choose to use her. But a melee resist of 1420 is very nice, as it means she can tank things up close and personal very, very well. And a shoot resist of 838, it's not great, but it could be better, so a little caution is advised if you plan to use her against incoming shooters on the enemy side. When it comes to armor, as a solid defender, she is most certainly packing some pretty good numbers there too. About 3600 for the head, about 3539 per arm, and about 4079, almost 4100 for the legs. Pretty healthy HP pool there, so really can't argue too much either in that respect. But this is also not counting Hoplite before it comes into effect, which, as a reminder, will buff the resist stats, her melee and her shoot resist, for every defense part that is equipped. Now, since she's already packing 2, this is going to kind of put her in the same position as Jackal's meta change, who also packs Hoplite. So even though her stats may look kind of papery here on paper, she is going to be noticeably tankier while she's on the field actually doing it because of that ability coming into play. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, she is kind of mixed and kind of scattered for what she tries to do, and it's for these reasons I have to grade her kind of a middle ground 6.5 out of 10. Now, guards and defenders are actually immensely useful in any situation you try to use them in. Granted, caution is advised based on the enemy team, but she does do the role of a defender moderately well. Between Gravity and Optic Guard, she can choose to negate specific type of attacks, even if they are kind of niche, but the Hoplite-like ability is what really saves her and forgives a lot of her shortcomings in this case. As mixed parts, I do have to rate her equally at a 6.5 out of 10 for these very same reasons. Even though Gravity and Optic Guard you probably won't use, if I'm being completely honest with you, instead you probably will be capping out her legs to use on any of your defenders, female in particular, for any kind of aquatic-based terrain that you have to fight on. And being completely honest, that alone will make it a huge win, because when it comes to pretty much any other terrain across the board, sea legs are probably going to be the one of the most that's going to really trip you up the most. Because unless you have somebody with the adapter leg ability or is a float leg, you're really going to be struggling on that terrain compared to literally any other across the board. So already having a very decently well-rounded sea leg for females that has 2 heavy slots, S rank on aquatic terrain, and a very solid defensive-based ability, this is going to be a leg you're definitely going to want to capitalize on and make sure you have raised for any of your female defenders on aquatic terrain to make sure they make the most of every defensive action they take.